All right, welcome to the Dealan-de podcast, and I'm here with Dr. Laura Patryas from the University of Manchester, and we've just decided to just go for it and see what comes up for us in this conversation. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of uh, intriguing tidbits. I think this is going to be an intriguing conversation. I thought what I'd do is just jump in and just if you could tell us a bit about yourself and what are you up to?
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam, for welcoming me on this exciting podcast. So I work at the University of Manchester here in England, and a while back I did a PhD in psychophysics, which is an area looking at how do we perceive things. And so it's quite an exciting topic for me because I love to see how the human psyche works and how do the eyes look at the world. And it's not a straightforward, there's an image and that's what we see. It turns out there's a whole host of stuff that interferes or sort of navigates the way we view the world. So that's kind of what I lecture. But I also love dance, which is why I'm here, which is why I'm talking to you. And I feel that all the sort of training that I've done previous to my introduction to dance has kind of, at the time, I was just doing these random things. I was getting into music, I was getting into lecturing, I was getting into research, and then the whole dance and the music side of things. And I wasn't sure what is this? What's going on here? And actually, as I'm sitting here talking to you, it feels as though the pieces of the puzzle were slowly merging. And there's a beautiful picture that is unfolding for me, which is one about sharing the joy of, first and foremost, life, being a human. How do we embody these beautiful physical bodies that we've been given, and sort of how do we get that across into the world, really? So there's an aspect of lecturing, there's an aspect of teaching, and an aspect of simply being. So there's lots of bits and bobs to me.
I love that. I think that's a big what comes up for me as you're talking is like, it's how do you tell a fish that they're in water? How do you tell, it's like there's so much of perception is like, well, I think of my own self, how do I know what I'm perceiving when I'm just perceiving it? Like it's how do you know what you don't know? And
That's
then
so cool. Yeah.
yeah, and the dance for me is kind of an aspect. Well, the picture I'm having is like, well, the embodiment is sort of the way through. It's like, well, the fish swims and is like, well, look at my body, and oh wow, this is how it feels. I am a fish in water, and I do, jump out of the water, and the experience of it gives you the perception of it. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, that's really great. And I think the two really interlink. So you have the perception and the experience aspect of it, and you have what's going on in front of you right now. So when we perceive the world, we don't really see what's there. I know that might sound like such a bonkers thing to say, but we tend to see the world through our own view of everything that's happened to us. So we're perceiving the world, we're not seeing the world. And that goes right down to the basics of, if we all look at a tree, the green on the leaves, we all see that green in a slightly different way. And then if we take that further, trees mean different things to each of us. Someone who is logging trees, that's money. Someone who gets their peace in nature and they feel really held and loved, that's their friend. So different people perceive things in different ways. A tree is not just a tree. We see as we are, not as the world is.
Mm. Yeah, so I was like, well, why is that a problem? Well, I guess that could become somewhat self-evident that when we're just in a not lower perception, I guess a more limited perception,
Yeah.
it can lead to, I guess, what can it lead to? What do you see as the problem with that happens?
I think I have a problem with the word problem in itself, because we wouldn't say that there's a problem here at all. There's just something to be curious about and something to be open to. So, because we all have much more in common, right, than what we think. So I think there's not a problem as such. It's to notice that there may be something else here for you to see as well. So is your heart open? Are you open to the possibility that the way you're viewing this might not be the full picture? And that's all. So I think that's where we're currently at, is noticing and not really judging, noticing what is, and being open to maybe there's a little more here.
That sort of leads back for me the concept of not concept, but just that dance often lends itself to open up that pathway of perception.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Often when I open the session, so I run an ecstatic dance, we say that there is no such a thing as a bad part. There is no such a thing as a bad thought or a bad feeling. We simply open up to the landscape of our inner being and allow that to translate and transmute through the body. And the body has such a wealth of wisdom. So we're simply allowing the stories to drop down into the body and trust that whatever unfolds is the undoing of some of the knots.
Mm. And can you tell me a bit more of your journey into dance and your journey into this path a bit that led you here?
Yeah, it's such a sacred question. Thank you for that. I love dance. I mean, that's right off the bat. I just want to qualify. I just love it. It's beautiful. For me, so I got into dance when I first listened to the first album that I ever had, and it was Michael Jackson's Bad.
Yeah.
Were born in the 80s, then that was probably your first album too. And I remember when I listened to it and when I watched Michael move, it was like I just wanted to be him. I wanted to breathe him. I wanted to sing him. And I found myself, I don't know, I was about 8, maybe a little bit less. And I was just on the floor copying every move. And I found that I was transported to a different world, to a different me. I was like, whoa, this is a portal. Dance is a portal. It's a portal to all these various possibilities, all these iterations, all these apparent others. And so I loved it from that moment on, and I got into singing and I got into performing, and it was my home. Dance and acting was my home. And then when I was around 17, I got stage fright. And I sort of, I kind of like withdrew into my shell a little bit and found that I couldn't do all these things that I could previously. I found that I couldn't just spontaneously go into a dance and a song. There was this I was aware of this inner critic part that was watching me, that was judging me. And of course, the inner critic I projected out into the world and thought that people were judging me and watching me. So that kind of went on for, 10 years. And then when I got into my early 30s, perhaps a little bit earlier, I went to the 5 rhythms dance. And I remember my very first session clearly because it was quite an overwhelm on the senses for all the bodies, the physical body, the mental body, the spiritual body. It was just so rich. Massive tapestry was unfolding on the dance floor, and I was just watching it. And I kind of just stood at the back of the room, kind of just trying to mind my own business, but I couldn't, because there was so much going on in a dance floor. I couldn't help but to delve into other people's lives, because the bodies are so clear. The anger, the rage, the joy, the sadness, the fear is so clear through the body. There's such a clarity and purity that our bodies have. But anyhow, and I noticed at one point this person on the floor, what appeared to me as though they were making passionate love to the floor. And in my mind, I named this person the floor licker. And so I left that and thought, wow, that was quite weird. And the following week, I was the floor licker. Like, I just couldn't help the joy of simply being with whatever unfolds, just sprung up from I don't know where, from the pit of my tummy, or even lower, even underneath my feet. There was this potentiality that kind of bubbled up. And from that moment on, I was just in love. I was in love with dance. It was a love affair that started with Michael Jackson, and it's a love affair that carries on. So it was beautiful introduction to the world of movement as medicine, and in a way psychotherapy through medicine. Through moving, which is beautiful. You know, we say a picture speaks 1,000 words. Well, I think dancing does the same thing. You know, I'd had some talking therapy previously for 5 or so years, and just that one session on the dance floor meant more than 5 years worth of talking therapy. So the dancing really does have that ability to reach into the shadow and reach into the depths that really talking doesn't really touch. We need to dive deeply into the body, because the body holds all those feelings. You know, everything that's ever happened, the cells deeply hold on to that energy, and then through the dance we get to express it in very clear, very pure, very powerful ways, more so than words. Which makes me think that we should do this interview through some kind of dance form.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Bring the dance in. Yeah, I mean, that's that. There's that the thing about like Michael Jackson, as you're talking about like an artist or a musician. It's like there's this realm that is like um in our head we go, oh, here's what I need to think, or this is the answer, or this is what I perceive as life, or this is what I think is life. But then there's these artists or these moments that kind of break through in a different, that touch us in a completely different way, that is undeniable, that just goes, oh, this is life, this is part of life. That you'd think like, oh, it's separate, but it's not. It's they're like the mind body connection is
That's
is so interrelated, and there's aspects in our brain that keeps us locked. But the like this podcast that I'm doing, it's like, well, wait, how does a podcast include dance? And I do talks about politics, and I do talks about spiritual. How does dance fit into that conversation? And it's because kind of what you're talking about here.
Well, I think dance just holds it all. Dance is that beautiful backdrop for everything to simply unfold within it. When you were talking about Michael Jackson then, and these artists, these brilliant bodies and minds that seem to now and then really come through, I think what came to me was the authenticity. You know, when someone is moving and singing and embodying with authenticity, because you can't help but to join them. You can't help but to join their pain. You can't help but to join the joy or whatever it was coming through. So it's that authenticity piece that's really key.
Mm. Yeah, I love it.
Mm,
Yeah, and that's the going back to like the fish and water, the authenticity of like the seeing and perceiving a deeper truth of
that's
who we are.
And you know, once you lift that veil, once you look under the blanket, you cannot unsee it. Once you see that, hey, there's something more, and it's actually going back to that perception piece. Once you notice that what you're perceiving may not be the true picture, once you get a taste of that, you're kind of curious for more. You're longing for more. It's like, show me more. And then the next time you go and explore on a dance floor, you're ready to try something else out. Okay, how does grief move with my knees? How does longing move through my shoulder blades? You know, and you start to explore, okay, where do these feelings live? And it's just, it's like a menu, you know, it's like every time you come to the dance floor, it's like a beautiful empty plate, and you're just adding these ingredients to it, and you're cooking up, you know, it's like a cauldron for me. It's like a magical spell of who am I? Who am I? And what's beautiful about that is you're not the only one. Everyone else joins you on that journey. So it's magical.
Mm. Yeah, and then there is that really fascinating connection to how the body moves as the mind's thinking. You know, it's like when you're feeling stuck, your body move. It's like it's not inseparable. You move stuck. You know, if you're grieving, you move grieving.
That's right. When I first joined the Five Rhythms circuit, I did a few of the heartbeat levels, which go sort of deeper in. And I'd do one on anger, one on fear, and various others. And we'd do these exercises where we ask the body, not the mind, how does anger move? And so you'd have all of us lined up at the back of the room, and the music would play, and right, okay, go, off you go. This first 10 of you show us how anger moves. And when my anger moved, I was punching, you know, like proper punching across the dance floor. And I'd never seen myself do that. I didn't even know I was capable of punching like that. It's amazing how we're able to embody parts of ourselves that the mind knows nothing about, at least on the conscious level. So what the dance does is it taps into the unconscious level, which of course is the 90% of us, right? 90% of the stuff that goes on in us is unconscious. And that's where the gold is. That is where the energy, where the juice is. And the dance just has that beautiful ability to authentically tap into the unknown.
Yeah, what's beautiful too is really, we're talking about going to classes, but you could access this on your own anytime. There's no authority that really you want to, and we do. Sometimes we're angry. Oh, throw on that song of anger, or we're happy, or like we've all experienced it. If we dancing alone or singing alone, it's like we put on music and express that. But
Beautiful.
yeah, the invitation. What if you went a little deeper, and you need take a private space and just like really embody that. What do you?
Yeah. And I feel that whilst the class is a helpful thing, as you say, you can we all have bodies, right? And we all have access to music, or most of us do. And so I feel this is such a brilliant point. Thank you for that. One of the little tricks that I was taught quite early on is how to embody different feelings within a few moments, so that when you're on your way to a high-pressured meeting or a presentation or whatever, and the nerves are kicking in and the body's gearing up for a full-on fight or flight, you just move the body through the different waves. And you find that it expels, it expends this unnecessary energy, this worrying, these kind of secondary arrow in some Buddhist teachings, we would call it, where we add and pile up these worries. And when we take the body through a very quick wave, through all these different feelings, you find that right at the end of that, you're just sitting there like some kind of a Zen master, and you're ready for your meeting. So in that way, it is very similar to, say, a yoga practice, very, very similar to any other meditative practice. Really useful.
Nice. Can you tell me a bit more about your practice, about the classes you lead or the things that you're leading? Can you explain that a little bit more?
So once I'd sort of stopped going to 5 Rhythms so much, I kind of felt that, and then COVID kicked in, and of course then I did do a lot of dancing just on my own, which was amazing. Some of the classes carried on Zoom, which I was really super thankful for, and it worked. And then I sort of got into the ecstatic dance side of things. So one of my friends and a few other friends who are ecstatic dance DJs felt that how beautiful would it be to offer this on a regular basis, to have this practice where we allow people to really delve deeply into their bodies, into their minds, and express that in a safe place. So a couple of us did an ecstatic DJ and facilitator training, which was amazing. And we just dived right in. And the premise for us was always very much, we're not here to teach, we're not here to lead, we're here to co-create. So no one's leading anyone else, we're just simply bodies on the dance floor exploring, in that sort of mycelial way where no one really knows what is going on, and it's fine. No one's judging. So we offer classes every Sunday night, which is such a beautiful treat. And we start off with sort of an embodied mindfulness meditation first. And this is sort of a way to welcome anyone new, to explain any rules. There are no rules. It's kind of beautiful because it feels like the only rule we have is that there are no rules, which is gorgeous. The one thing that is that we are quite keen on pointing out is that we don't do talking on the dance floor. So once we enter into the wave, that's it. Once the music's on, we really drop into the bodies. And then we might sometimes do a little warm-up exercise. So we kind of we become curious about how does the body move when it wants to be slow? How would the body move if it was a certain type of animal? How would you feel if you were to, rather than be in your typical dancing corner, how would it feel to walk straight across the room and explore the room from the other side? How would it feel to greet people with a hug? So there's all various different exercises that we introduce, and everything is by invitation. So by all means, there's no obligation to join anything. We really trust and we listen to our bodies. And if it's a no, great, honor the sacred no. We sometimes might do exercises. How does the body show as a yes? How does the body show a clear no? Where are your boundaries? And then we step into the main wave, and then that's just, it's such an unknown. It's just whatever comes. And often DJs, and I've DJed too for those sessions, often DJs very intuitively work with the energy that's in the room. So if you're noticing that the energy is a little bit low, you might need to alter some of the tracks that you may have hoped to play. And there's a kind of letting go with that for you as the DJ. It's like, oh, I was really hoping for a high energy wave. and you're finding yourself, oh my God, I'm playing only mantra tunes. Okay, well, that's what's showing up. So it's really being able to intuitively work with what's showing up on the dance floor. And then we end with a beautiful sound bath, sound healing. So most of us are trained in sound healing, and it's just such a beautiful way to integrate. And we call it, or I at least call it, the Holy Trinity, where we start off with that grounding meditation, we move through into the dance, and then we integrate with a sound bath. And it seems to be a wave within a wave within a wave. But it all works really, really beautifully. Yeah.
Beautiful. So when you're, we call it ecstatic dance to ideas, like, oh, I just show up, I'm ecstatic. But what do you find also shows up? Like, what do you find is showing up for you or people?
Yeah, I often say during the welcome that you can be ecstatic about grief. You can be ecstatic about anything. So ecstatic in this way doesn't mean that you're feeling joyful and on top of the world. Right off the bat, I say that we're simply ecstatic about seeing and exploring what is. And that doesn't have to be joy. That could be grief, or that could be pain, or that could be fear. But we're ecstatic about rolling out that welcome mat and welcoming each of the guests as they come in. So for me, one of the biggest challenges in the early days was to step out of the mind, of the monkey mind, judging, comparing, analyzing, ruminating. And it's like, it is a perpetual process of letting go and of shedding and of saying, thank you that you are here. Would you be willing to show me how you would move if you were to come into the body? And it's really honoring everything that comes in and welcoming it in an ecstatic way. I think that's how it feels for me. So it's definitely possible to be ecstatic about grief.
Can you talk a little bit about what you notice about consistent practice? What did you notice? Have you, like, for me, I know one year I said I'm dancing every Sunday for the year. Like, I'm dancing every, and I noticed a change over that time that deepened. And I guess, what did you notice something that for yourself or in other people?
I think what's lovely about turning up consistently every week is that you are surely going to meet every part of yourself. Because if you only choose to dance on the good days, it's like, oh, I just feel like having a really joyful dance. I'm going to meet all my friends and we're going to have a lovely time. Okay, beautiful. You've had a joyful dance. But how about if you're showing up every week, and surely each week there's going to be different flavors in you. You really get to meet yourself in quite an intimate way. And sometimes people go, well, I'm not feeling well. Or I'm feeling a bit low. I don't. It's like, oh, well, you've signed yourself up for every week. So let's see how you dance with it. So there's definitely something to be said about that consistent practice, only insofar as it doesn't allow you to get away with not going because of X, Y, and Z. I can't go because I haven't washed my hair or whatever the reason is. So there's definitely something to be said for that. At the same time, dance is dance, and it's like your best friend. You pick it up wherever you left it off. So it isn't as though, oh gosh, I haven't danced for 3 months. I've lost it. It's like, no, you pick it up simply where you left it. If you have a body, you're ready to dance.
Mm-hmm.
In whatever way, even if it's sitting down, even if you're feeling really low energy, how does it feel to allow yourself to lie down And maybe just move your little tiny finger. How does tiredness show up through the dance? So I think the consistency piece is beautiful from the point of view that you simply are going to do it, whatever.
When an interesting, you'd think that like a high or a low is what's the block. Like, oh, I'm blocked because I'm really upset, or I'm really grieving, so I'm not dancing, or I'm not doing my practice, whatever your practice is, or I'm really ecstatic, I'm just loving my life, so I'm not doing my practice. And I find that actually the thing that's the hardest and the thing that stops engagement is I'm okay, I'm comfortable, and that like I'm not going to go to dance today, or I'm not going to do my meditation because I'm good, I'm fine. Like I'm not high, I'm comfortable, and there's something about that comfortable that's interesting to dance through.
Yeah, I love that. That is a beautiful, and I would ask, which part of you is saying that? Which part of you is saying, well, I'm comfortable, so I don't need it, or I only go when I need it? And I would always question, okay, if you were to take your comfortableness on the dance floor, how would it move? How would it feel? Because soon enough, the moment the music plays,
Mhm.
the moment you see that person that triggers you, you know you're dealing with it and you're in it. And it's like, okay, I was comfortable. Now I'm noticing that different parts of me are surfacing. So I would say, is the comfortableness protecting you from something? So always curious.
Yeah, and there's there's the other kind of transcendental aspect to dance. Maybe you want to. Sometimes the comfortableness just stops you from just that greater, like, whoa, like I was okay, but now, wow, I'm opening up to something a little more mysterious and magical and unknown, that is that supernatural transcendental something.
I
You know,
love that. And often a lot of people stop just before that their greatest breakthrough. And often there's like a limiting part of the psyche that goes, play it safe. You're comfortable now. You've healed enough. You don't need more. And how would it feel to just keep on going and say, well, okay, no, I'm willing to see what else. And as you say, often when you do go through that portal, it's like, whoa, I've unlocked level 100 now.
uh-huh. Yeah.
That's a beautiful point. Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. Yeah.
um Back to kind of so there's the dance aspect, but you also you're a doctor. Right?
Yeah, so a doctor insofar as I did a PhD. So it's a
Uh-huh.
philosophy doctor rather than a medical
Sure.
doctor. And of course I just can't help but to be curious about everything.
Hmm.
Everything's just a ball of wonder for me. Like I want to know about it.
Hmm. Yes. Beautiful. And how does that tie into your life now? Because you do the dance, but you also do that. What did you get from your studies? That
Yeah, I definitely got the way we perceive things may not be the total truth, and to kind of, rather than allow the part of the psyche that is the knower or the doer or the judger, it's like, oh, this is so, I've made up my mind. It's like, whoa, let's just step away from that. Let's just see whether that part can unblend a little bit, and let's really feel into the body here. What does the body have to say? So I think one of the biggest things is just that open, inquisitive spaciousness. And that's what scientists are. When we do research, we go in with the premise that we don't know. We don't know until there's some experience of it, or until we sort of gathered enough proof. And even then, when we think we have proof, we doubt ourselves. We go, well, maybe this isn't the case. Maybe we should redo that again. And often we do. So the wisdom from my PhD is, don't be so certain. Don't be so certain that what you see in front of yourself, or that what you're thinking is the total truth. Let's just let's go a bit deeper. Which kind of ties in, to, we were just talking about that comfortable part. It's like, what part of you is so certain that you're really totally comfortable? If you were to step away and unblend from that for a moment, what else would you see? What else is there?
I love the curiosity.
Yeah. Well, that curiosity comes from, so in IFS is short for internal family systems. And we have the 8 C's of the self energy. And self energy is a little bit like the soul, or the higher self, or Christ consciousness, or Buddha nature. And curiosity is one of my favorites of the C's, because it's just we just don't know. And something that comes to me, curiosity and uncertainty are best friends, because whenever there's moments of uncertainty, the response to that isn't to panic and go, oh gosh, this is the end of things. Kind of like when COVID first hit, there was so much uncertainty. Actually, the way to approach that is from that curiosity. Okay, is it true that I have the total picture here? Is it true that what's going on really is? How can I approach it from a different angle? So definitely that curiosity piece for me. And that's what science is. It's simply having a curious, open mind without that piece of sort of knowing and real certainty, which is how the dance is, right? When we come to dance, we come to be danced. We're not the dancer, we are being danced. Well, who's dancing us? I don't know. What is that entity?
There's that scary aspect to, I don't know, that fear holds, that like I was having a conversation with one of my kids, and there's an aspect of like, when you're like, I know this, but then there's an aspect of like a vulnerability to be like, if they ask me, well, do you know that that's true? And there's a little part of me that goes, okay, wait, I don't know that that's true, and I'm creating a perception or a theory about that. I have some pieces of a perception to reality, what is true, which again would go into that whole what is true, what is truth. But it's like I there's an aspect of like, I actually don't know, but I'm curious. There's a part of me that goes, no, I know what this is. I know, like I know this is what it is, and we're gonna go off that. Well, it's like, wait a minute, I actually don't know.
Yeah. And isn't there a certain freedom? When you reach the point of I don't know, it's not that you're at your breaking point or that you're giving up. It's just a kind of freedom. It's kind of entering the void. It's like, okay, I don't know, and therefore whatever happens to me now must be the right thing, because I don't know, because there isn't one in here that's judging anything as right or wrong.
Yeah, and there's a weird, it seems funny, there's a fear to it, but there's also, by acknowledging that, there's an empowering aspect of like, it brings it into the self a little bit more, like, yeah, I don't know that. And I get to let go of I get to let go of the stories, because the stories aren't necessarily true. Like the idea that I think I have to defend, well, I get to, like in science, I'm not defending stories. I'm not defending, like you were saying, like the open, like we learn, okay, we develop a theory, oh, it proves true, but we're not holding to those. We're going to keep growing and expanding.
Beautiful. So there isn't that grasping energy. It isn't so much, this is mine, if I let go of this, then it's the end of me. It's a kind of, we found this curious thing. We're not sure what it is. Let's do some more for fun. What's next? But just to take it back to the piece about parenting, as parents, we almost have this pressure to know, to have that certainty, because gosh, if I don't know as a parent and this dear little face is looking up at me and they want the right answers, then gosh, I can't be a good parent if I don't have that certainty. And I think, because I'm a parent too, for me, Mila and I swim in uncertainty. We just don't know. And sometimes I'll ask her. Sometimes I'll turn it around and go, hey, Mila, I really don't know what the answer to this is. What would you say? Or what would a part of you say? Because I've introduced her into the whole language of IFS. So, and we just, it feels like a couple of kids just playing around in the dark. It's like, we don't know. I think there's a privilege to that. As I'm saying that to you, we have enough of things. We have enough of food. We have enough of water. We have shelter over our heads. And I think there's going back to that comfortability aspect. There's a privilege in us being able to swim in that spacious unknown. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I have all of that, because I know there are people who don't have that. So gratitude's landing for me.
Good. Yeah, and it's that thing too of like that we going back to dance even. It's like we'll get to a space where we know that dance. Like we'll almost like, okay, I recognize that I know certain thing, or I'm dancing a certain way, and now I've danced at it enough that like, well, can my dance be different? Like life is so constantly changing. Like as a parent, you're like, oh, I know this, and then all of a sudden, right as I know it, now it's new again. Now it's like I get to go into the new again.
Isn't that gorgeous? Everything is fresh. Everything is fresh. When you were saying that, what came to me was also playing with live music, dancing to live music. When I was in my dance journey, I'd typically dance to a sort of a dance set. Some songs that I knew, some songs that I didn't know. And one day they had a live band, sort of like drumming and stuff. And oh boy, the dance that came out of this body was unreal. I'd never seen myself. And I thought I knew. I was like, okay, so Laura moves like this. And then this live set kicked in. And I wish someone videoed it, because I was out from this body was new, was fresh. So I think there is that effect of when you're dancing to music that there's some aspect of known. There's some aspect of and you might find that your body slips back into the dance that you did when you first heard that song, or the person whom you were with at the time comes into your mind. So there's some aspect of known, but when it's live music, it's like a wild meadow. It's like being up on the moors, and it's just wilderness, and you don't know if there's going to be an owl that flies out or a raven or whatever. And the wild body wakes up, and there's like suddenly it's like, oh, I don't know who this is. I think this could be my great grandma. Oh, welcome. It's like, it honestly felt like it was kind of an ancestral part of me that was wanting to be seen. So there is that wilderness there. Definitely, I recommend to anyone who hasn't danced to live music, it's wild.
Well, it's like the power. It's the power of the now. Like the be here now. Like the music's live. It's now. The dance is live now. What is it about that now moment that?
Well, it's the only moment that we are alive.
Yeah.
It's the only moment that is truly real, and when everything else is memory. And well, can you touch that memory? Can you, sure, there might be photos of yourself, there might be memories, there might be voices, there might be feelings, but if you were to try and grasp that memory, where is it? Well, it isn't here. It's the only thing that's here is this. And I don't even know who this is. This could be, you know, this is, so it's fresh in every moment. So I think dance really allows us to cultivate that sense of freshness in every moment. And it's a gift. And every moment is a gift. Every guest is a welcome, sacred guest. Yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about, you were just talking about the systems, the human, what was that, the human family?
The IFS, it's internal
Yes.
systems. Yeah.
What is the, tell me a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
It's just such a beautiful way of classifying the psyche. So the human mind is multiplicitous, and what that means is that there's different parts. So if I was to ask you now, Adam, what are you doing after this? There might be different parts. So one part might say, I'm going to hang out with my kid, or I'm going to go and take a jog, or I'm going to, and different parts want different things. So we're never only truly one person. There's multiple parts to us. And in IFS, we classify it. We classify the parts into exiled parts, and those are the wounded, often inner children parts. For those of you who've done inner child work or shadow work, and those are the parts that we lock away. We throw them down into the cellar, and we say, right, that these feelings are too painful for me to deal with. I just don't want to deal with it. And at the moment, there's an exiled part, which is a response to trauma. A protector part is born as well. And that part's job is to make sure that that exiled part never resurfaces. So we're going to keep it down. We've locked them down into the cellar, or into the sort of the shadow or the unconscious part of the psyche. And we're just going to make sure, and we have these guards that guard that door. And those guards are firefighters and managers. So the first line is managers, and the managers are the ones that say, right, so long as I run 10K every day, and I meditate for 20 minutes a day, and I even dance practice, we could find a manager part that's making us do certain things. So long as I do that, we're all good. Everything's ticking, and that child part will never surface. And those are often perfectionistic parts. Those are the parts that hurry us, that make sure that we're on time. They keep us doing. They're kind of doer parts. If for some reason, I don't know, you're feeling poorly, and so you can't go for your 10K, we're slightly on thin ice then the inner world goes, oh dear, there's a real chance here of an exiled, wounded child part being triggered. And then your mum comes over with chicken soup or whatever the healing soup is, bone broth, or for the vegans, whatever beautiful things they have. And you're triggered because it's your mum. You know, there's this beautiful quote, show me an enlightened person and then show me how they are with their family, because nothing triggers us like our family. But anyhow, so you haven't done your 10K because you're poorly. So that's the manager gone. Your mum comes over, you're triggered. And the final line of defense from this exiled part popping up is the firefighter parts. And those are the parts that cope with things by addiction. So they get addicted to Netflix, to social media, to substances, to all sorts of things. And once that's failed, then you're exposed, the wound is open, and you're straight back into those feelings. And often we talk about flashbacks in sort of PTSD. We talk about flashbacks, and what I find is that the most common flashback isn't some kind of image surfacing in front of your eye. It's an emotional response. So if you suddenly find yourself getting a bit angry, a bit tense, a bit annoyed, that is a flashback. It's an emotional flashback. And so how do we deal with these parts? How do we deal with this inner family, in this sort of, these inner warring parts? One part wants this, the other part wants this. Often we have these polar opposite parts. You have a part that's the goody two shoes. I'll go out and do all my practices, and I'll clean my house, and I'll eat well, and everything will be great. And then you have the baddie, the polar opposite parts that just sabotages the living hell out of your life. And so the way we deal with these parts, with the feelings that surface in the world of IFS, is we get to know them. And the basic premise is there is no such a thing as a bad part. Every part has wisdom. Every part is trying to keep you safe. And the way those parts, when they first surfaced, they actually did the best they could with what they knew. And they really did protect you at the time. They kept you safe. Now their tactics are a little bit outgrown. So now, rather than, they still think they are doing a great job for you, except you're an adult now. And what they might be actually doing is sabotaging. So the job of IFS is to first get to know these parts, to maybe let them know that you're actually 40 now rather than 5, because they kind of get stuck and frozen in that moment when the trauma happened. And the beautiful thing is we don't do that through a part. We do that with this thing called self-energy. So IFS has this beautiful premise, has this beautiful part. It's actually not a part. It's an aspect of us that is unchanging, that cannot be harmed by trauma, that is just perfectly peaceful, perfectly calm, simply watching. And this is going back to this notion of the soul, or the higher self, or Christ consciousness, or Buddha nature. And it's a part that can simply witness, has infinite time. Often the managers, they're in a rush. The managers, they needed to get something done 10 minutes ago, so this, when a manager part or a firefighter part notices that you're starting to approach them from self-energy, they kind of go, oh, there is that authenticity piece again. It's like, oh, you're not trying to rush me, you're not trying to fix me, you're not trying to get rid of me, you're not trying to let go of me. You're just here to listen to me. Okay. And then you can start to, like with a loving, perfect, peaceful parent, we can start to reparent these inner parts and get them to navigate so that they start to trust self-energy, that really peaceful, loving part. And it's the way it happens, it's magic. It's absolute magic. And, one of the things that I'm trying to work on is to do an IFS parts dance. So it's like, okay, how does the perfectionist show up on the dance floor? How does the inner judge or the inner critic show up on the dance floor? How would self-energy move? How would you move if you were to fully embody this gorgeous, calm, peaceful, centered part of you? So it's something that's sort of got in the pipeline for this IFS.
That sounds amazing.
It's just, I just love it. I have a lot of love for it, because we're not trying to train ourselves out of these parts. We're not trying to beat them up or let them go or shame them. They've had plenty of shame. They've had plenty of nagging, and how about we just listen? We really roll out the welcome mat for all these parts and simply listen and give them time. And I think that's what self energy has. Yeah, it's gorgeous, because as I'm talking about self energy, there's this, you can't help but to feel it, feel this presence, feel this calm.
Yeah, that's what's coming up for me is the, as within, so without, as above, so below, is that there's that everything that you're saying is this self for me, this body, this atom. But then there's like a communal self. There's like this, everything you said, we could be talking about a global self, like, as a globe, a world community. Are we at war with ourselves? Are we allowing, accepting all these parts of ourselves in to hear and listen and to go, oh, who's the critic? Who's the, all these different levels.
Yeah. It's beautiful, because we each have this, as you say, this inner war and outer war. Wars are just a projection of the inner world, but multiplied, right? There's now lots of multiple humans, multiple parts. And as you say, if we start to be curious, it's like, hey, you seem to be doing X, Y, and Z. I'm kind of curious about what you're doing here. Would you be willing to just back off a little bit so that I can breathe and be? Easier said than done.
Yeah.
And I often, is doing even needed? We're human beings, not human doings. Is doing really needed? So we could go even into that realm, that everything that happens to us, and if we in any way try to affect it or change it, we're already resisting what is.
Which goes back to kind of what I asked you, like, I forget what, now back to the beginning of the conversation, was like, oh, is this like, what's the problem or what's wrong? And you're like, no, maybe we should look at that. Is there really a problem?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for tying that back. There isn't one. There's simply noticing. And I think the only thing that could point to a problem as such, if for lack of a better word, is noticing where the resistance is. Where you resist, that will persist until we roll out that welcome mat and say, let's just hear you. Let's just listen to you, because you've obviously got a lot to say. No one's ever given you that welcome. Let's just listen. And I think, pulling it back to the dance piece, the body has time and space, unlike the mind. The mind's busy. The mind's always thinking of the next thing. The body's here. We can't outrun our body. The mind can flip back and forth, past, future, worry. But the body is always here, always going to the breath, always going to well, what's my arm doing? What's my shoulder doing? Are the knees wanting to tell me something new?
Well, and then, one can respond back to that. Well, there is a problem. Like, maybe I've got cancer, or well, but there is a problem. There is bad things, quote unquote, happening in the world, and I can't pretend that those aren't problems. How would you respond to that? What do you think?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you for that. Yeah, we're not being asked to not to see things, not to notice things. We are noticing it. And we're noticing that there's a part of us that would have us think that this is a problem in some way. Because going back to that notion of different parts, we're noticing that there's a part here present that is not happy with this, that is noticing that something's gone wrong. We need to fix it. We need to change it. and to always seek for the self energy, to always seek for that part that is simply watching with unconditional love for whatever, even war, even cancer. The tough one to say, because we're so programmed with these different views and parts, you know, judging what's right, judging what's wrong, what should be, shouldn't be going on. We're very good at that. If we knock on that door, we know what's on the other side. There's going to be more things to look at. There's going to be more things. But if we notice the knock, if we notice the call of the part and say, hey, I hear you, and can we be with self-energy with this? Can self-energy look at this? And there's been some amazing, I mean, I've heard of some cases where people have had a cancer diagnosis and they have approached it from self-energy, from actually fully welcoming and totally letting in, not letting go, but letting in. And it heals. And you think, okay, what do we do about this? Does that mean that when someone shows up at the door with a gun that we go, oh, wait, I'm just going to get into my meditation pose. I'll roll out my yoga mat and I'm just going to sit with you in self energy. It's, you know, as a wise person once said, be in the world, but not of this world. So we do need to be in the world. There needs to be some aspect of noticing and being with. But can we allow an aspect that's not of this world to be with? If you see what I mean, that's sort of, as you were saying, that mystical. Can we let that curious, mystical, open part be with what is going on? And that part may not even be a human part. You know, in IFS, some of the latest research, and it's showing that we may not even have human parts in our psyche. There might be some parts that are animal parts. There might be some parts that are even mystical alien parts. So it's open. It's curious.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, ooh, I want to know that. What are those other parts that I don't even know?
That's right. And sometimes when I lead a dance, you know, I will ask, how does the part that you don't even know would move? How does that move? Or how would an animal in you move? Or just playing, we're just playing, you know, nothing, we don't label things, we don't judge things, we just simply let it be. And it's gorgeous when you're in a room full of people like that. And that's, I guess, taking it back to it's beautiful when you can practice it on your own, and it's a really helpful thing to do. But when you multiply that, and when you're in a room with people who are in the full truth and the full authenticity, and they're expressing it to be witnessed, it kind of helps you to be brave. It kind of helps you to go, oh, wow, that person's really, really going for it. Maybe I want to really let go of anything and just let those parts be fully seen.
Like that. Yeah, well, it's like back to perception. Like we can perceive things as A, B. Oh, this is my choice, A or B. That's what the person comes to the door with the gun. Oh, I got A or B. I got to pick up my gun, or I got to tackle them, or I got to cry and surrender. But then there's that part of when you step out of this world a bit and you step, even dancing, you could say, okay, I'm stepping into this really unknown space. All of a sudden I see I didn't have just two choices or three choices. I had an infinite number of different choices. Yeah.
And then suddenly it opens up to you. And because we all affect each other, through the energy, you might find that the shift in your energy from fear, from either fight or the flight, affects the person who's trying to do whatever they were trying to do. And suddenly I've heard of cases like this where suddenly the two people just simply sit down and just talk. And the person who was trying to attack says, "Hey, I've never been listened to. I simply actually came here to be heard. I happen to have a knife or a gun in my hand, but actually I just want to connect." And it's like, whoa. A moment ago I was either going to pick up my gun or whatever, or run. And actually I'm finding myself having this in this time warp where we're just interacting. It's gorgeous. But that's next level master.
There's I think Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication, said that thing that
Yes.
violence
Yeah.
is a suicidal, desperate attempt to say please.
And and in some readings we say that that everything is a call for love. So we either send out love or we're calling for love. It's a bit tricky when you're noticing a person with a knife and it's like, it doesn't look much like they're calling out for love. But underneath that, when you strip the layers of all these parts, and when you, in IFS, we would say, when we unblend from all these parts, all we see is a person seeking love.
Oh, that's beautiful. And can we look at that globally? Like, oh, can we look at that as world players? Say, well, those
Right.
people, you know, Putin and Russia, and people anyone that we think is our adversary, and can we look at them as just these people that are human too? And what does that bring up in us? That's what I think of me. Like all of a sudden, like, well, wait a minute, I can't. Like, oh, what? Can I look at other people I disagree with in a
Yeah,
way that's like, wait, they're human. Oh, that's
yeah.
scary. No, they're not. No, they're wrong. You know. No, okay, wait, what's that about? Now I'm locked in a perception.
Adam, you so get it. I love it. This is music in my ears. It's gorgeous to just listen. It is that. There's a thing that we say, do you want to be right or do you want to have peace? You can't have both. Because the moment you attempt to be right or make someone else wrong, you're not in peace. Because you know that you've been sort of hijacked by a part that is projecting actually fear that is in you, and it's projecting it out there. So you can't be right and have peace. I'd rather have peace for me, and that's come at a cost. It's taken me decades to get to a point where I simply notice and step away and merge into that realm of nothingness. There's actually nothing that I need from that other person. And there's nothing that I need from that other person that simply can't be met from my higher self or self energy or Christ consciousness or Buddha nature or whatever other words people have for that unconditionally loving part of us.
I the thought that just came to me was like, do I want to be right or do I want to know? And like it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And because you can know it when you are curious about the other, rather than making up an assumption about them, which you think it's right, you actually figure out that you're the same. You have the same worries, you have the same fears, you've been through the same heartbreak. The heart breaks in the same way in every human, There's no human that hasn't gone through grief or sorrow or pain, joy, ecstatic bliss. And when you're curious, you're attempting to know the other, which is actually you, which is all you, because we're all mirrors.
Yeah, because I could be right. Oh, I'm not a dancer. I'm right about this, or I know, maybe I guess even I know a smaller perception, and I'm right about that, or a greater knowingness, which is like, okay, I know maybe whatever that is, I like relating it to dance. I know I'm not this. This isn't for me. Or I don't move like that. Or even I've danced everything I know how to dance. I've danced it all. And you're like,
Yes.
okay, wait a minute. Have you danced the now? Have you danced you know?
Yeah, I love that. Just meeting different parts of yourself is the greatest gift. Um, Carl Jung says that the greatest gift of a lifetime is becoming who you were meant to be. So when we grow old, and they often say the youth is wasted on the young or whatever, and it's like when you're young, it's just beautiful because we go through so many deaths of ourselves. We go through the times when we're certain that we know about who we are and what life is about, and then you go through a heartbreak and you suddenly figure out that you didn't know anything, and it's like it crumbles you back into nothingness. And then from that nothingness, there's that beautiful fertile ground, and suddenly you build yourself back up, and you come up, and then life happens again, and there's another thing, and you go back down, and it's that beautiful pendulate in between the expansion and the contraction. And that's another beautiful way that one can explore on the dance floor, from that curling up and that protection, and then opening up and really noticing the flowering and the flourishing. Life just it's perfect. It's perfect for polishing off those parts that think they are right. And then in the end, you look at yourself when you look at the other, and you can't tell that you're looking at the other. You're looking at yourself, right? Because you've polished all the parts that you think you are. You've polished everything off, and suddenly you go, oh, there's me, and oh, and there's me, and there's me. Oh, you're all me.
Beautiful. Yeah. Life is quite a journey for sure.
It's a journey. It's a gift. It's a real gift. And we know what I love about it is that the moment we are born, the only certainty is that we're going to die. That's the only certainty. And it's funny because we go through our life trying to attain certainty, but the only certainty that we have, we run away from, death. And it's like, wait, you have certainty and you're running away from it. How can we allow death to actually be a joyful thing? It's like, oh wow, that's the only thing that I'm certain of. Let me just be open and curious for the rest of my life. That in breath to the final out breath, because everything's up for grabs, right? It's just and in a way where if we allow to be ourselves, to be that witness, we're just watching it unfold. And if you let go of that manager, that doer part, you find that you're just watching, and life happens without you needing to actually do anything. I mean, sure, you have to do the practical things of waking up your kids on time, and I'm talking to you because you're a parent too, so you know how it feels. Put your shoes on 20,000 times. And apart from those sort of practical things of feeding yourself and making sure that you earn enough money, everything else just happens for itself. There's that beautiful says nature doesn't hurry, and yet everything is accomplished. And it's like it's done. It's done for you. You're being breathed. You're being danced. You're being talked. Who is this talking? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the mystery, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, we experience like 1,000 deaths and 1,000 births.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous, and it's a natural letting go. When we try to force, sometimes in the spiritual conscious groups, there is quite we try to let go of things. There is a sort of a drive to let go, but actually parts of us don't really want to be let go of. They they want to be integrated, they want to be listened, they want to be loved. And then when they're ready, they kind of just go off on their own and do their own thing. And so there isn't that need to force the act of letting go. What we're actually doing is we're letting them in so that they can leave when they are ready, these different parts of us. And as you say, they'll just naturally die. And it is, to live a long life is to attend 1,000 funerals of who you thought you were. And sometimes, as a mother, you find that I'm grieving over things I didn't even know I would grieve. When I stopped breastfeeding, it was like one of the biggest griefs I've ever been through. It's like, oh my God. First it was hard. And then when it was easy, she didn't want to breastfeed anymore. And now I'm really sad.
Yeah.
There's these griefs that come that you thought wouldn't, and that's the beauty of life. That is the magic of life.
I love that. Yeah, so true. Yeah, then I'm lost for words in a moment.
That is gorgeous. I'm welcoming that. Maybe we could just be for a moment. Maybe we could just be. I'm just gonna take a moment to close my eyes and give gratitude. I'm noticing that it's only in silence that I can truly connect to your heart. Truly feeling who Adam is.
Yeah, we do so much work. We do so much effort. We do so much pushing.
Yeah.
Just trying. That's the grace in that. Like so many of us humans, we're trying so hard in our realm. And we're trying so hard to make it happen, just hold things together.
Yes.
Yeah. Give
And
ourselves a little bit of grace.
yeah. And I feel that if we were to allow what is and step into that authenticity, things would just naturally unfold. And people are drawn to that. When we stop trying so hard, people just are drawn to you because you have this calm, almost this mystical, almost this unreal energy about you. Like, who is this person? And you suddenly find that when you're not doing, that's when the real doing happens. That's where real life unfolds, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, well, like the Christian monk, the I and the Father are one. It's like the Son does, but when I stop being the Son, the child, and I step into the Father, it's like which is the mystery, the mother-father principle. It's like we relate to that because that's us. So, oh, wait a minute, I see it in you because that's me. And you become relatable because I relate to that. I see that in me.
And it's really beautiful. And that is true for all qualities of human feelings, right? Even the angry ones, when they come with force, we sort of brace ourselves. But if we allow that and we actually go, oh, no, wait, I have just as much capacity to go into this rage as you. We can be with it. And when we are truly in our presence, in our authenticity, it disarms the parts. You don't have to do anything, which goes back to what we were saying earlier, that when someone does come in the middle of the night to attack you, if you're in your presence, in your centered beingness, that's all the armor that you need, because it just disarms the other. Or you better pray it does.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Or and we can when we expand our perception to a loftier perception, we can sense. It's sort of like when we um, observe our own anger, and where it comes from, we can observe where it comes from in other people and go, oh, like now I can relate. I see how you're in your anger. I see how you're in your pain. I've been there and I see it myself. Now I can relate, not from anger to anger, or from pain to pain, which we're in the war again. But
Yes.
I see the inner war.
That's
And I
right.
can solve it.
And you see the innocence behind the angry mask, because it's all just a mask, right? We can wear an angry mask, we can wear a happy mask, we can wear an enlightened mask. There's such a thing as the holy ego too. We can wear all sorts of masks. And actually, when we come across these masks, which we all have as well, you can see the innocence, just the pure innocence, the pure love, the call for love that is right behind that mask. And it's next level. I mean, we're talking real wizardry level here. And it takes a lot of practice to get to that level of not being enticed and pulled into the drama.
Yeah, and we could, it's like, I'm just seeing that, like, perceive that the deeper reality that all is love, that we're all is one. And to move into that space, it's like we're looking outside of ourselves for the hero or the Christ. We're looking outside of ourselves for the good leader. We need them to be that. Like,
Yes.
oh, we need that martyr. We need that someone to be the good person, because
Yes.
somewhere inside we believe that the baseline isn't good, or like it's like because we're in that in ourselves. Like, well, that has to be good or bad because I feel like I'm living at that place of not good enough, or not. So if they're not that, and I lose that, well, then I'm just stuck in this place of not good enough.
That's right.
Not good.
I think it goes back to the fact that the psyche is very much polarized. We sort of seem to be working under this paradigm of good and bad, which goes back to choice A, choice B. Well, actually, if I step away from that paradigm, just behind that, there is just the being, just the sense of noticing. And so I don't even have to enter, get down to the level of the battleground. I can simply rise above it, or step away, or peel away, or unblend from it, and just be the watcher. Again, much harder doing than saying, especially in the moment when a part gets triggered, from a family member, from your child, as a parent. And it's like, and sometimes my daughter gives me the lessons back to me. She'll say, Mum, I'm noticing, are you in an angry part? I'm like, oh my goodness. So it's beautiful, because then we have this symbiotic, we're in this. I'm in a way, yes, I'm your guardian. I in a way, I facilitate something here. I'm not quite sure what. I'm keeping you safe. And yet I'm not an authority. I'm not here to rule over you. And so when she gives me this wisdom back, and some of it is her own, I really bow down and I thank her. And I'm like, wow, thank you for helping me to recenter and integrate. And it's not as though in that moment I'm making her into a parent, but I'm simply making her into an equal, that equanimity piece. You know, I'm not the ruler of you. I'm not I'm not here to be the one that tells you how it's done. We're co-creating something here. And I think that's where we start. We take it down to this, to child parent, and we start to level it out a little bit. You know, it's only recent, within the past, I don't know, 100 years, that children have been given rights. And it's like, it's just bonkers. Are children human? Yeah, they are. They have human rights. So it starts from the, you know, I was living in York for a little while, and one day I was just looking outside. We lived opposite a primary school, and I heard these children's voices playing and laughing. And in that moment, I thought, that's where it's at. We start there. We start practicing this way of being with each other there from that moment on, you know. Parent to child, teacher to student. There is no there's no hierarchy there. No one knows more than the other. There might be some experiences that are greater, which might help us to keep the young ones safe, but that doesn't mean there's more wisdom there.
Yeah, and I think when we open ourselves to giving our inner child and outer child freedom, it opens a world that sometimes we didn't know that was there, or that is beyond the grasp of our fear, and it's terrifying on some level of like what they then choose now in that freedom. Like just culturally now, it's like, you know, we these next generation of children, we've given a level of freedom, and they are expressing and becoming to this new level that now we grapple with it. Whoa, whether it's LGBTQ expressions, and now they're like, whoa, I have so much freedom. I'm going to get to choose my gender. I'm going to get to choose my pronouns. I'm going to get to choose who I am in the world on a whole new level of freedom. That
Yes.
now, as a parent witnessing, going, oh wow, okay, whoa, wait a minute, what does this mean now? Like part of us as society, or even as in ourselves, we give ourselves on the dance floor. Oh, I'm going to give myself freedom, and all of a sudden we express something and do something and witness as something that then we go back and go, whoa, 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 wait a minute, who was that? What is that? Even sexually expressing ourselves, or and it's like, oh wait, stop. Now we have to go, okay, wait, now we have to own that and deal with our own
That's right.
next level.
Back to that sense of there is no right or wrong here, there just is. And it's a test. It's a test, because how far are you willing to let in? How far are you willing to go with this sense of freedom? And freedom in its purest sense is infinite. It's just free. And it's only the sort of the finite human psyche that would try and sort of pigeonhole it and say, well, kids, you've had this much freedom, now no more freedom, you've got plenty, you can call yourself a they, that will do now. Well, actually, who's the one that's saying that? And what are we fearing? What are we fearing? It's that, like you were saying, that comfortable part. If we stop there, who's to say that the next dance after that wouldn't have been another layer, like that onion layers? So it's and as a parent, I'm also in my human self, I'm watching this and going, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. When I was your age, I was climbing trees.
Yeah, there's a part that's like, am I safe? Is this safe?
Right.
you know.
Well, we say in psychotherapy that the autonomic nervous system scans the psyche 4 times a second. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe?
Wow.
At any point in time, the answer to that is no. You go into an automatic fight or flight. So it's deep. It's deeply ingrained in us to be safe, to try and attempt to have safety, knowing that all along knowing that there's no such a thing.
Yeah.
Because the moment we are born, life unfolds the way it does, like the wilderness of a river or an unknown path, and then we die.
Yeah, because we could do everything we think to be safe, but life, you never know.
Amazing. And you hear of these people, I often, when I see clients, I often talk to them about cases where, people have had the best china, the best glassware locked away in the cabinets, or the Sunday suit, and then they die, and all this stuff has never been used, has never been worn, because they feared it breaking, or children weren't allowed to go into the best room or whatever. And it's like, have we truly lived, or has a part of us truly lived? What are we saving ourselves for? We're all going to die. You hear of these people, never smoked, drank in their life, jog every day, and then they suddenly die. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Trying to be safe in a world that is inherently full of change and uncertainty is like trying to grasp air. It's just seems to be flowing through and doing its own wild thing. And it's living with that wilderness that is the challenge, that is the mastery of life, the being in the world but not of this world piece.
Oh, that's beautiful. uh,
Gorgeous.
well, thank you so much for being on this call with me today.
Thank you so much, Adam. I sort of feel like I'm now ready to go again. Like I'm ready to do another one, but I'm more just letting it flow and let it be wild, even wilder.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So gorgeous. I'm looking forward to hearing more from you. And yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Such a beautiful service you are doing here. And I've checked out some of your dancing videos on your Facebook. It's you are doing sacred work. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's why going back to the dance it's such a beautiful. It's not even. I don't know if it's a practice. It's just a way of being that's just like it. It's a practice, but it invites us to do all these things in a micro moment. So much like we just were talking about. It's so hard. It's like we could say, oh, it's hard, it's complicated, but actually, it's super simple. It's like a choice to shift into the moment, into the now, and say, oh, like yes, all these things can exist externally, and we have all these emotions and feelings, and life is really rigid and complicated, but actually in the moment is the now. In the moment is the beauty that we can be with the authentic, what is authentic.
That's gorgeous. That's just made me breathe a really gorgeous deep breath into the body, into the heart. Thank you, Adam.
Well, thank you for coming, and I really appreciate this conversation.
And send your child lots of love too.
Yeah, they're teaching me many great things.
Thank
Well, have a beautiful rest of your day, and
you.
take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.